Hello again. Is your bike just a conveyance? And what does it actually say about you? Okay, hello, nice to see you again. Well, I can't see you. I'm saying, God, I haven't had enough coffee down me yet. Um, it's Friday. I'll be picking up my daughter later, and I'll be having her for the weekend. So this is going to be the last video I do until next week. I just thought I'd put one out there. Another motorcycle musings one. I'm interested in what your bike says about you, what my bike says about me. I also want to touch on the notion of wabi-sabi. I don't know if you've come across this. And yin and yang. We're not going into Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance, don't worry. But just a few things that got on my mind. I guess really where this came from for me was I recently bought a new book. I bought this book. It's by John Wyatt, the original CB750, and it's actually a restorer's guide to the bike. And it's really lovely. The photographs are beautiful, and it gives you in quite minute detail the changes that occurred over each year of the model history. What's period correct, which is the correct part to put on, how did the bike leave the factory and all its guises. So it's really useful, and it's very, very helpful for me for my bike. And I was thinking about it in terms of what I'm doing with this project bike, because I bought it as a project. I got it at a good price, but it's always been, the CB750 has always been a bike I've wanted. But I guess really, like, in terms of kind of practicalities, as you know, my first bike was an XB250 Yamaha, so it was a small cruiser. And I guess when you've just passed your test, I learned on a CG125 Honda, and they were great. They were fantastic little bikes. But my own first bike after I'd passed my test was a 250, and I think that was really good. Small capacity, it was a V-twin, so it was punchy, and it had a low seat height, so I felt very confident on it. And that was great. So I had that for a year or so, and then I moved up to a bigger bike, and the next bike I got was a ZZR 600, so quite a step on capacity. Inline 4, but another great bike. It was fantastic. Had that for a few years, actually. That was a lovely bike. My bikes after that tended to be more very sport orientated. So a ZX6, a Ducati 748, and a Honda Fireblade 929. All very sports orientated bikes. So at that time, what those bikes said about me was it reflected my interest. I was very much into the superbike racing and the Grand Prix. I used to do track days myself, and how I presented myself. It was a reflection. Like two-way reflection, like looking in the mirror. Those bikes reflected that. But when I got married, when I got married, I was less inclined to use the sports bikes. So then I looked at other alternatives. I actually got a Mark 1 Speed Triumph, and that was good. I also got an old CB404 Honda vintage bike, again, because I was doing my City and Guilds at night school at the time, so I thought that would be a good bike to practice my skills on. It was a lovely little bike, that actually. It was great. And as I've gotten older, my bikes have reflected that. Now, in terms of the number of bikes I've had, I've generally only ever had one bike at a time. There have been periods where I've had more than one. Like most recently, I've had the Honda Project bike. I had a Royal Enfield 535. So 2 bikes in my shed. But in the past, there have been times when I've had more than one bike as well. So I had I think at one point I had 3 bikes. And I have to say, it wasn't something I was particularly happy with, because the situation I'm in, I've always worked. My jobs have been quite, I don't want to say intense, but basically they take up a lot of my time. And I've always been kind of a devoted kind of family man, if you like, really. So I make sure to devote time to my family. So in terms of free time for myself, it is fairly minimal. And so the amount of times I was able to get out and ride was reduced. It seems silly having more than one bike. And so, gradually I just got into it. It's also, I heard, do you remember Steve Berry? He was a journalist and TV presenter. He used to present slots on Top Gear in the 90s. He was good, actually. He used to do bike reviews on Top Gear. They used to do that then. And it was his review of the Mark 1 Speed Triple that got me into it, because he said a great thing. He had a great turn of phrase. He said, if the good guys are on white Hondas, the bad guys are on black Speed Triples, and it's such a menacing looking bike that it was great. But Steve Berry is good, and I heard him on a podcast recently, and he says he's only I think he's got 3 bikes. He's got an adventure kind of bike, like a BMW, and a couple of other smaller capacity. I can't remember what they are, but he said so if you've got more than 3 bikes, what you've actually got is a bike shop just with no customers, and and it's actually very true. So if you, for me, I prefer having just one bike and to focus on it, really. And so, the bike I've got now, the CB750, it's a bike I've always kind of wanted to have. Never went there purely because there were other things more practical alternatives on offer. And also, I've not always had access to kind of shed space wherever I've lived. And so this is it now. So this bike, I want a bike that I'm going to keep. I don't want to pass bikes on. And I've done, as we all do. We all move through bikes. And there's some that I really regret selling, actually. I regret selling that Harley that I had, that 883 Harley. I wish I'd gone for the 1200, but I had an 883. That was a really nice bike, that, actually, for pottering around. It suits me. But I want a bike that I'm going to keep. And I'd ideally like it as to be as a bit of an heirloom, if you like, for my daughter. Not that I want her to ride it. That's another thing. I'm quite happy to ride motorbikes myself. I don't know if I'd be happy for my daughter to ride one. That's weird, isn't it, actually? I don't think I would. But I'd like her to have it, and for her to have it as an heirloom, maybe to sell it or something like that. Because one of the good things about the Japanese classics is that they are still seemingly retaining their value. An early CB750 like mine is going to be better than most, really. And so that's on my mind when I'm doing the work, and it's interesting, really. Because I mentioned Wabi Sabi, and that for those of you that don't know, it's a Japanese philosophy, I guess. Really, it's the acceptance of imperfection and the fact that imperfection's actually quite beautiful. And the way I like to think of it is, think of Levi's, think of your Levi jeans. They probably look a bit better when they're worn in and a bit tatty around the edges. Think of the Venus de Milo, the sculpture. You know, the fact that she hasn't got an arm and she hasn't got arms. She looks great for that. Like the fact that she hasn't got arms certainly doesn't distract from the beauty, and in many cases it actually adds to it as well. So I kind of think about that with my bike, because I'm thinking about, okay, what parts do I buy? Do I buy like sort of OEM stuff? And obviously, not all OEM stuff is available now. You've got to go with pattern parts in some cases. So my kind of philosophy with the bike is, I'm not a bike designer, so I don't like doing modifications to my own purposes. I don't like modified bikes. I like bikes to be pretty stock. And the reason for that is because I'm not a bike designer. Honda knows much more about bikes than I'll ever know. So I trust them to put together a decent bike. And so if I can keep it as the way like Honda intended, I always think that's probably a better way to go. But also in terms of like kind of the condition, because my bike is in good nick, but obviously it's a 50-year-old bike, so there are signs of wear, like sort of the shocks, although they were okay, cosmetically, you know, not brilliant. There's some flaking paint on the kind of crank casings. There's little bits of rust pitting on some of the chrome areas. And you think, okay, what do we do? Well, I use AutoSolve. AutoSolve solves all the problems, but you know, you could replace all these things. And I think, well, no, because that's not what the bike is about. It's a 50-year-old bike. It's going to have these kind of things. And so I'm accepting of that, and I actually think it's actually kind of quite nice. I like looking at, I don't know if you've ever seen the Classic Motorcycle channel. There's two, watch that. Because obviously the workshop stuff is really useful. And Dave, I can't remember his name, the guy who does the workshop stuff there, very nice man actually, he's got glasses, kind of quite softly spoken. He always says he kind of mistrusts kind of concourse looking bikes, because I kind of, you know, all that glitters isn't gold, and there's often some horror stories behind these kind of things. And he says when he goes to look at a bike, I look at a bike to see that it's actually being ridden, because if a bike is being ridden, it's pretty good indication that the bike is okay. So, and that's it really. Obviously, you know, I want a bike to ride because I don't have a great deal of time to ride. I want a nice bike to ride that's going to make me feel good and it reflects who I am. And I think certainly, in terms of the CB750, it does reflect who I am, because it's older. It's older than 50 years old, so I'm older than 50. I'm a little bit older than the bike, I have to say, but it reflects that. So it's almost like that we've passed through time together, and you know, we're in reasonably good shape. The things that could be done better, we're both a bit on the heavy side. That'd be okay. We can't move as fast as some of the younger kind of stock around nowadays, but I'm kind of quite happy with that actually. That doesn't bother me. That's for me. So I'd be really interested to know, what does your bike say about you? Tell me, put it in the comments actually. That'd be kind of quite good. Because the other thing that like comes up, you know, when you talk to people about why they like riding motorbikes, they often say the same thing. The word freedom comes out all the time. And I often think it's a bit of a cliche. Yes, there is an element of freedom, but I actually think that is more about... what I'd say is, if you don't routinely ride your bike with an open face helmet, if you normally always use a full face helmet, try riding with an open face one, because then you genuinely, it's much more engaging to feel the wind, to hear the noise. And the other thing is, oh God, closed full face helmets are great. Certainly safety wise are fantastic. But I always remember riding up on the dual carriageway up to Southport she was my girlfriend at the time. We weren't married by then. Anna on the back of my bike. It was on the Kawasaki, and we were riding up. Lovely kind of spring day, and suddenly there's a bloody wasp under my. Oh Jesus Christ! I'm on the dual carriageway doing 50. And oh God, what am I going to do? And I had to pull in off the road, and just was terrified in case it stung me in my eye or something like that. But yeah, this bloody wasp buzzing all around inside my visor. And I've had that kind of thing, not with wasps, but with kind of flies. Believe it or not, I've even had it with a nose hair. Oh God, what was that? I had a helmet, and it must have been the draft underneath the visor, and there was something tickling my chin, tickling my cheek like that. What the bloody hell is that? I was thinking, is it a fly or something, a spider? And no, couldn't feel anything. And it was when the wind blast, it managed to dislodge a hair from up my nose. I mean, it was a bloody big long hair as well. God knows. And it would curl out and start tickling my chin, and then when it would curl back up again, so you couldn't see it. God, that's consequences by genetics. That's true. That's my mum and dad, because I haven't got my fingernails grow like fingernails and toenails, and my hair never stops growing, like the hair from every bloody orifice. Anyway, yeah. So what does your bike say about you? It's funny, you know. And what about beauty in bikes? Because I'm no longer convinced that bikes should be in pristine condition to be beautiful. It's like the wabi-sabi kind of thing again. Because I remember seeing on Grand Designs, Kevin MacLeod, the kind of Holmes programme on Channel 4. And he went to visit some guy who'd done a grand design, and you know where he goes back and see her. And so, how's it gone? How's been living in this beautiful new house suited you? And he went back to this guy, and obviously those people are generally very wealthy anyway, to be able to do that. And they went in the living room, and in pride of place, on the the kind of the room in which a fireplace should go, a fire should go, really, the focal point of the room. About 3 foot up was a huge concrete plinth, and on it was a Ducati 916. Obviously never seen kind of rain, anything like that. And it was on there, and Kevin MacLeod was like, and he was horrified at this. He said, "Oh, you got a motorbike on the wall," and the guy was saying, "Yeah, I'm very proud. It's a work of art." And I have to say, Kevin MacLeod, I agreed when he said it's not a work of art. You know, it's a work of design. Yeah, it's industrial design, but it's not art. And it is true. It's true. You know, motorbikes look beautiful. They are beautiful, but they're not works of art. They are works of design because they're reproduced. A work of art is genuinely something that has been moulded and shaped by hand, unique. And a Ducati 916, as beautiful it is, and it's one of the most beautiful bikes, it ain't a work of art. And it shouldn't be on a bloody plinth in your living room. I agree, if you live by yourself and you haven't got garage space, like to say, okay, I'm happy with a bike being in your living room. I can see that happening to myself one day, but not putting a bike on a wall as if it's a, because that's the wrong thing for a bike to do, because it shouldn't be on a wall. It should actually be getting ridden. That's what a bike is for. That's its purpose. If you're just sticking it on a wall for someone to gawp at, you're actually stripping away the purpose of that bike, what it was actually built to do. So I don't think bikes are works of art. They are works of design, and that's good. That's good enough for me. And I remember, just as a bit of a counterpoint to that, I was selling something on like kind of Facebook Marketplace. I often do that. I don't like being in stuff. So if something I feel as though I haven't got any use for, I like to get rid of it. I don't like being encumbered with stuff. And this guy was coming to collect it, and I can't remember what it was. He'd come in, must have been something small, because he turned up on a very old Kawasaki, and it was, you know, it wasn't one of the kind of the glamorous ones. It was just like I think it might have, was it an ER5 or so? I could be wrong. Can't remember. But it was like your universal Japanese motorcycle, and it was you know, a work-a-day kind of bike. And he kept it running, and it was tatty, it had rust, had, you know, dirt everywhere, and it looked a bit scruffy, and he had kind of chains all over the place ready to lock it up if he needed to. So, you know, so there was no, it was a practical motorbike. And I went out to look at it with him, and I said, you know what? That's beautiful. It really is beautiful. Its form is describing its function perfectly. So I think if you've got a bike that is no longer perfect in any way, it's seen a few years, maybe it's been scraped, banged, bashed, and if you get kind of anxious about that, I know I used to, God, when I had that Fireblade, the 929, I was terrified of getting it scratched and things like this. I think, you know, that the anxiety this gives you, don't think about it like that. Like, I'd say, like, sort of, accept the bangs and bruises that come with it, wabi sabi, the acceptance of perfection, because of imperfection, because imperfection is actually quite beautiful in itself, really. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say, really. As I say, I won't be putting anything up this weekend, but I will next weekend. I'm doing the exhaust next weekend, and I've got some parts coming to allow me to finish the brake caliper after that debacle. And I've also got a new speedo drive, well, a new old speedo drive coming, actually. So, you know, hopefully that'll all go on quite well. But the good thing is that next week, hopefully I'll get the exhausts on, so that'll be a big step forward. Okay, if you've not done so already, it'd be really good if you could like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.